Saint Anthony along with their teachers. These students will lead us in the invocation, pledge, and will grace us with a song. At this time, if these students would please come up to the podium, and everyone, if you would please silence your phones, and if you so choose, please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, we are gathered here to give thanks for your many blessings upon each and every one of us. We thank you for the precious gift of life on this beautiful day, to continue to praise and glorify you. Heavenly Father, we ask you to be with each and every city council member, guide their minds and move their hearts as they hear and make decisions today to benefit our city of Beaumont and the needs of the people here in Southeast Texas. We seek you first in all we do and confess that we are nothing without you. We ask all this in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation. To ask for God's blessing upon our country, our nation, and especially for the city of Beaumont.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home.
They would like to gather up here. We can get a picture with all of us. Please, I don't mean to summon you like that.
I know.
It's a bad look. Hopefully nobody got that video.
Everybody, you can look right over here.
Thank you. Thank you all. May I have roll call, please?
Mayor West,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Turner, absent. Councilmember Durio,
Present.
Councilmember Getz,
Present.
Councilmember Felshaw,
Present.
Councilmember Samuel,
Present.
and Councilmember Neal.
Present.
Thank you.
Today, we have one proclamation. Councilman Chris Durio will read the proclamation. After it is read, we'll announce your name so you and members of your group can come to the podium and then shake hands with council and take pictures as well. Councilman Durio.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas the Beaumont Professional Firefighters Local 399 exemplify the most time-honored American ideals of public service and sacrifice, protecting the citizens of our community from tragedy on the home front. And whereas members of Local 399 are highly trained and dedicated individuals who demonstrate daily an extraordinary caliber of character and courage in the face of danger. And whereas members of Local 399 unselfishly donate their time and energy to supporting the battle against muscular dystrophy by filling the boot each year for the Muscular Dystrophy Association. And whereas in the past years, the Beaumont Fire Fighters Local 399 has raised funds for the Muscular Dystrophy Association through annual Fill the Boot campaign. And whereas the Beaumont Firefighters' endless service to MDA has given so much hope for families fighting neuromuscular diseases. Now, therefore, Roy West, Mayor of the City of Beaumont, do hereby proclaim November 3rd through the 5th, 2023 as Beaumont Firefighters Local 399 Fill the Boot Days, and encourage all citizens to support this worthwhile campaign in the fight against muscular dystrophy. Accordingly, the mayor has hereunto set his hand and caused the seal of the City of Beaumont to be affixed. Signed, Mayor Roy West, October 24th, 2023.
And accepting will be Captain David Carpenter with the International Firefighters Local number 399, and anybody that is with you. And I'd like to point out that Councilman Chris Durio is a retired firefighter here in Beaumont.
I'm Captain David Carpenter of Beaumont Fire Department, Local 399. Want to thank the council and Chris Durio. He collected for 20-something years, and we greatly appreciate that. The International Association of Firefighters, the IAFF, has collected critical funds in the community since 1954, $1 at a time, as part of the Fill the Boot program for the MDA. The Professional Firefighters Association, Local 399, has participated in this event for 20 years and will continue this long-standing tradition as its members kick off the annual program, raising funds to support MDA's vision to accelerate research, advance care, and advocate and empower families living with the MDA, muscular dystrophy, ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and related neuromuscular diseases in support of the families MDA serves. Dedicated firefighters from Local 399 will be at major intersections throughout the city with boots in hand, helping pedestrians, motorists, and customers and other passersby to donate to MDA on November 4th, 5th, and 6th, 2023. The partnership between MDA and IAFF began in 1954 when the IAFF signed a proclamation designating MDA as its charity of choice and vying to continue raising awareness and funds until cures can be found. To date, over the past 8 years, the citizens of Beaumont have contributed over $150,000, and we're hoping this year will be the best year yet. And now I have Ms. Carrie Dalton with MDA. She'd like to say some things as well.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak today to give thanks to Beaumont, a city that definitely has a big heart. MDA, like David said, is the #1 voluntary health organization in the United States for people living with muscular dystrophy, ALS, and other related neuromuscular diseases. For over 70 years, MDA has led the way in accelerating research, advancing care, and advocating for the support of our families. And our mission is to empower the people we serve to live longer, more independent lives. And gratefully, the firefighters have been with us every step of the way. Through Fill the Boot, a strong firefighter tradition, giving families living with muscular dystrophy hope for a future, but most importantly, support for today. And because of this, your support, there are currently 28 FDA-approved treatments in neuromuscular disease. It may not sound like a huge number, but it really is. I've been with MDA for over 20 years, and when I started, there were none. There wasn't one treatment. And for, 2 decades, I'm traveling around with all the firefighters. Thank y'all so much for filling the boot. You're, out in the hot sun. It's really adding up. It took a lot of boots on the ground to get where we are today, but now the momentum is there. Last year when I was here, there were 18. Today I can say that there are 28, which is significant. It really is life-changing. It's a game changer because now it's into genetic medicine. Because there are treatments, we can now there's 43 different kinds of muscular dystrophy. And now that there are treatments, we can advocate to be on the newborn screening test for the different forms of the disease that we now have treatments for. So now we have babies that may have not made it to 2 or 3 years old, that they're going to find out that they have it now and will never even know or have the symptoms, which is truly amazing. So, it's like 2 decades in, and this is why I'm here. So I want you to know where all this hard work is going for, but of course it's going to kids at camp, it's going to the care centers, and all of this is provided to the families at no cost to them because of our supporters that help us throughout the year. So if you want to know where this money is going, it is going to saving lives. So thank you so much for that. It would not be done without your support of the firefighters and the citizens within the communities like Beaumont. It really takes a true partnership. So we thank you for all of that. Of course, I want to thank our Fill the Boot coordinator for leading the charge, David Carpenter, of course, Local 399, and all of the citizens of Beaumont. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And if y'all would like to come forward, and you shake everybody's hand. And thank you very much. Thank you, David. Yeah, you ought to be in the middle. That's right.
Alrighty, y'all, you can look right here. And 1, 2, and 3. We'll take one more. 1, 2, 3. Excellent job, y'all.
Thank y'all. Thank you. For those that are here for the proclamation and would like to leave, now's the time to do so, and thank you very much for coming. Thank you, students. In St. Anthony's Basilica. Thank you. Now is the time for any citizen who wishes to speak. You may make public comments on the consent agenda and regular agenda item number 1. The city clerk will call your name when it's your time to speak. When you approach the podium, please say your address, your city and state. We ask that you keep it to 3 minutes. The green light will come on as you approach the podium, and the red light will come on when your time is up. And there's a kiosk in the back to have registered if you have not done so.
Barbara Will Turner, public comments. Is it Brianna? I'm sorry. Yeah, Brianna Will Turner. Yes.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Brianna Woolturner and address is 2950 Hubert Street. Today I'm here speaking on behalf of my grandmother in a sense. I'm not sure if you guys have had other people come in and talk about the water bill issue. I've seen a few articles about it. But to begin, so my grandmother, she has dementia, and about mid last year, she can't live alone anymore. So she moved to Dallas with my aunt. And so since she lives in Dallas, no one lives in her home, and I've been paying her electric and her water bill ever since. And normally her bill is about like $50. Every so often I'll get one that's around like $75, $80. But last month I received a bill that was $1,700. And keep in mind, no one lives in the house. So I felt like it was extremely unreasonable amount. So I contacted the city of Beaumont water company, the billing part, and I talked to them. I will say that hasn't been the best. There's been times to where they were not so friendly, and a few times they actually hung up on me. But they kept saying that there's a leak in the house, and so I had a plumber come out, and we did the whole water test where you turn the faucet on and you go look at the meter and see if it's turning, and it was turning. And so when we turned the faucet off, the meter was no longer turning. And I had the city of Beaumont maintenance come out as well and search the whole entire property inside and outside, and they detected no leak either. So there's not a leak, and we don't understand why the bill is the amount that it is. Currently, so they pulled the meter because we're still trying to decide, so the bill hasn't been paid yet. So they pulled the meter. Whenever they came and pulled the meter, like the water where the meter is at, it was still running through it. They came yesterday, and I guess the person who pulled it didn't turn it off all the way. But the meter box, they just threw it in the ditch as well. And we have pictures and videos of it too. But my main purpose today was coming because, if my grandmother was living in her house by herself, I feel like that's extremely unreasonable. And if she didn't have her family to help her with that, then I can't even imagine her having to deal with it on her own. But like I said, I am the one who pays her bills and stuff like that. And I have a friend who just recently had a pool, and it's a nice size pool installed, and their bill wasn't even half that price. So my main concern today was if there's anything that you guys can do to provide answers as to why the bill is the amount that it is, I'd greatly appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Ronald Kelly, public comments.
Subject, water bill. I got both of my water bills here as well. Last month, it was $49, and now this month it is $108. And so what I have resigned to do is to turn the meter on and off as I need water until we can find out what's going on. Now, I go and look at the meter. You literally have to stare at it to detect any movement. It's not doing this, it's twitching. It's gotta be a problem. It's gotta be a problem with the meter. We done went all over the house, checking everything we could check, toilets, sinks, you name it. Nothing is happening. With regard to the billing, we need better customer service because they are not friendly at all. They're not friendly at all. I sat in this council meeting, and Councilman Getz drilled Todd on why we are having to write off debt and debt from the water department. Well, one thing that we're doing is we got bills in the hole. As I got this bill here, there's a bill sitting in the hole right now. So that makes it easy for people to walk off and leave water bills. Why we can't get 30-day water bill cycle like everybody else? That doesn't make any sense. If the energy can do it, if the credit card people can do it, why can't our water utilities do it as well? And then when you go and ask them, well, what's the current reading? Well, I don't know. I don't see it. I can't find it. Well, you read it on October the 18th. You don't have the current meter reading. And then finally they did locate mine, but I'm trying to help a neighbor of mine who is limited with his English. They didn't want me there with him. I said, he's giving you all permission to talk to him with me standing here. Well, no, sir, you have to go sit over there. It just doesn't make any sense. We got to get better customer service. We got to get this water thing taken care of and worked out. It's costing your citizens money. It's costing the city money. When you all write off that debt, all of us are paying it. So we basically, all of us are paying other folks' water bills that have walked away. But we have a system that is allowing this to happen when you keep a bill sitting in the hole. Now, my understanding is that you all have told them to correct that. Said you told them back in August. Well, we're not there yet. We haven't gotten it done yet. I don't know if they gave you all a timeline or if you all gave them a timeline, but it's not there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Scott Andrus.
Mayor West, my first honor to meet you. Last city council meeting I was at, Mayor Mouton was here. She listened the whole time attentively while the city council was too busy arguing about the Beaumont Enterprise and the local TV station not getting a meeting on time. I'm a U.S. Navy combat vet. There's 49 other states other than Texas. I'm from Louisiana. My dad did 2 tours in Germany, 2 tours in Vietnam. I see that eagle. I'm proud to say I'm American. But yet I had to fight the traffic all the way here. Almost got run over by these idiots who drive like fools. What do I have to do to say my life matters just as everybody else? I'm not white, I'm a Creole. I served the Navy 39 years. I didn't start off. I started off as a bubblehead. When they found out I wasn't stupid, I became a submariner. I went to Coronado. And I didn't ring a bell. I'm not G.I. Jane. My name is Scott James Andrews. But I respect all authority. I'm not John Cougar Millican. The Beaumont VA, which is narcissistic, we don't have a kiosk in Louisiana. I go get my travel pay sent to my putting my Burns ID in there. But yet you got these fools, these bums on McFadden, got freedom to walk in there and take stuff from me. I got banned from there because 2 Beaumont PD showed I was going to show them the guy tried to shake me. They gave me a trespass warrant. What kind of justice is that? We the people ought to form a more perfect union.
Just please lower your voice a little
Cannot
bit.
tell the volume of my voice. Shrapnel. I've been through testicular cancer. I'm an XPOW. I'm glad to be an American. I cannot tell the volume of my voice. You want to capture someone's attention? Whisper. We're all protected by the Privacy Act of 1774. I died for this country. I was in a coma in Asia. When they pulled the plug on me, I vomited a respirator out. My fiance was sitting where this gentleman is. She thought I was dead. I have an adopted daughter in Thailand I have not seen since 9/11. Why? The process. I got attacked by a guy named Keith Emery over to Travel Inn. One of these crack house inns. He sat on the stairs 3 days before Beaumont PD arrested him. So I do apologize if I got loud, but I'm glad to be an American, or at least I know I'm free. The man I admire most is not here. He's going to be here. I work with Wounded Warrior Project, Make-A-Wish Foundation. I got 2 nephews, great nephews, autistic. We're going to do a Wounded Warrior Project for everyone in Claiborne Park after 11/11. In case you don't know, gentlemen, every 11/11 is Veterans Day. And how many months? Next year I have 29 days, all of them. Because the Olympics, I'm not Bruce Jenner, but I promise you, I'll win a gold medal there. Council, I do apologize. Mayor, is that you, Mayor West? All right. Pleasure to meet you, sir. I did not get the campaign, but I'm glad you listened. And I do apologize if I was too loud. May God bless you all, and God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leonard Thomas. Sir, if you'll if you'll step up to the mic. Yes, sir. Yes.
Why y'all so tight in here? Loosen up. 409. Y'all know what we gotta do. Get this infrastructure together. Be cracking. Y'all see what he on. You. Simple solution. It's not about bills. It's a bigger picture. Fix this foundation. Build up. It's the only way to go. United we stand, huh? What's up, RJ? Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all I have, Mayor.
All right, is there a motion and a second for the approval of the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 1, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Council consider authorizing the city manager to enter into an interlocal agreement with the Texas Municipal League Intergovernmental Risk Pool for Liability Insurance Coverages. And I'm going to ask Assistant City Manager June Ellis to present this item to you as we come forth. We had talked with council about looking at other ways to, achieve savings, but also look at what we're currently having now.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a project that I've been working on for the last 8 months, since February. I wanted to look at whether or not there would be a benefit to the city by joining the Texas Municipal League Intergovernmental Risk Pool. Currently, for the city's liability insurance coverage, we are considered self-insured right now. We simply pay out of pocket. Many cities are members of the risk pool. It's designed specifically for local governments. So for the last 8 months, I, and along with some city staff, have been working with members of the risk pool to really determine whether or not it would be to the city of Beaumont's advantage to opt in to the risk pool. So this afternoon, we have a presentation, a short presentation to give to council. With us today is a representative from the risk pool, Mr. Jeff Trinker. He is the risk services manager with the risk pool. He drove in from Lufkin to present to City Council. He will present half of the PowerPoint presentation, and I will wrap up with the second half of the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Jeff Trinker, as Mr. Ellis said. I'm a risk services manager with the TML Risk Pool. I've been with the pool for about 7 years, and then for 8 years prior to that, I worked for cities in Texas. Wanted to talk about the risk pool and give you some information about what the risk pool is, what our values are. If there was one thing I wanted you all to take away from this presentation today, it's that the risk pool is not an insurance company. We are a partner. We are a local government entity just like yourselves, and we exist to provide risk management services to cities, primarily cities, but also other government entities throughout the state of Texas. And partnership is really the thing that we focus on. We don't view you as a customer; we view you as a partner, and we look at that relationship as a partnership rather than a vendor customer sort of relationship. If you look at our logo, you'll see what our core values are, and those are integrity, public service, fiscal responsibility, operational excellence. Those core values are very similar to the core values of many cities as well. A little bit about the history of the risk pool. We began in 1974 with about 100 members. The reason the pool started was because in the 70s there was basically a very hard insurance market. And what that means is it was either very difficult, if not impossible in some cases, to find insurance. And when it was available, it was very expensive and the terms were not favorable. Coincidentally, we're in another very, very hard market right now. Texas is not exactly at the top of the list of places where insurance companies want to do business for a variety of reasons. We're talking about liability here, but liability is high in Texas. On the property side, we have just about every kind of weather phenomenon you can imagine, which makes writing insurance in Texas difficult. So we were at least difficult to make a profit on. So we were created to sort of take that profit incentive out of the picture so that we could focus on stability, price and rate stability for our members. And as we have grown over the years, we have added more lines of coverage. We have workers' comp now, we have liability property. The big thing that we are focusing on now is cyber liability, which is probably the thing that we are most concerned about for our cities within the state of Texas due to all the cyber attacks. And those cyber attacks can be as catastrophic as a hurricane can be in terms of losing services. So we have grown over the years to the point now where we have about between 27 and 2,800 members. Those are local entities of all types. So those include cities primarily, but also housing authorities, appraisal districts, water districts, that sort of thing. And part of that buildup is that we have developed a lot of ancillary services in addition to just the coverage. So we provide robust loss prevention and training resources so that we can try and prevent claims from happening in the first place, or if they do happen, to lessen their severity. So the core of what we provide is liability, property, and workers' compensation. But because we're focused on municipalities primarily, we also offer some very specialized services based on the needs of cities. Examples of that would be animal mortality coverage for canine units, special events that you may have, fine arts. Many cities have fine arts in parks or in buildings. We cover those. Drones are used now by a variety of city departments. And as I mentioned, cybersecurity is a huge and growing concern. We provide coverage for our members, and there's a lot of property that we cover, about $52 billion in property values. We cover about 88,000 automobiles and about $6.7 billion in payroll on the workers' comp side. We are governed by a board of trustees, and that is basically composed of folks like you. We've got mayors, city managers, city attorney, city council members on our board. So they are the ones who make the decisions for the pool. They are the ones who decide the rates. And because they are in positions where they're having to wrestle with budgets every year, they understand the need to try and maintain rate stability. So the other thing worth mentioning here too is we have also, the board is such that cities will always have a majority on the board. So this is truly a municipally oriented organization. So we have a lot of cities involved, about 1,100. Beaumont did withdraw in 2006. I've got a list of cities here. It's actually easier to tell you what cities are not part of the pool of any significant size. And that would be Beaumont and Tyler, and that's about it. Every other city, for the most part, is affiliated with the pool to some degree, with some line of coverage or another. But locally, Baytown, Port Arthur, Port Neches, Nederland, pretty much all the cities in this immediate area are members of the pool. Throughout the state, some of the bigger cities that are comparable in size and complexity to Beaumont are going to be Pearland, Missouri City, Round Rock, League City, Sugar Land, Pasadena, Woodlands, Bel Air, Katy, cities you've all heard of, big, cities that have a lot going on, have a lot of complexity. We handle all those. We're familiar with municipal needs, and we're very confident that Beaumont joining the pool would be a benefit to the city of Beaumont as well as the risk pool. So the purpose of the pool ultimately is to provide sustainable economic value for our members. The long-term costs, the goal is for those to be less than the commercial market. The members' equity that you would pay into the pool in contributions would remain with the pool. So this is another difference with the pool as opposed to being with an insurance company. The money you send to us stays in Texas for use by other Texas government entities. It's not going to Connecticut. It's not going to shareholders. You're not paying taxes on it. It's specifically used in member equity for the needs of Texas cities and other governmental entities. And long-term, our goal is to keep costs down, have rates that are flatter in terms of changes than you would see in the commercial market. Build and maintain long, meaningful relationships is one of the key areas where we're different. We're not here to sell you something, collect the money, and then you never hear from us again. We will assign, and Mr. Ellis will discuss this in more detail, but we will assign a service team to you that will be the same people that you'll work with on a regular basis. So it's not a situation where you call the claim number and whoever happens to be working that day is who you get. You will have a team that will get to know the city of Beaumont over time and what your needs and pain points are. We will also help you with various complex issues that you will encounter as a city. Those can be lawsuits, legislation that is related to your coverage. We hired somebody from the main TML organization to be a legislative liaison for us. So he was working very diligently during this past legislative session on those issues that would be relevant to cities. And then finally, we really do strive to focus on our mission statement, which is to offer and provide Texas municipalities and other units of local government with stable and economic source of risk finance and loss prevention. So non-monetary benefits, Mr. Ellis will discuss, but I really want to focus on that you, in addition to what you pay for just the coverage itself, you would have access to a huge amount of training resources in person, online, and there's a lot of value added if you were to join the pool that I don't think to access now you would have to pay extra for, which you would not be doing with us. And at this point, I will turn it over to Mr. Ellis, but I will be here to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, once again. So I'm going to kind of get into the kind of meat of why we're here and what our coverages, proposed coverages are. So we want to focus on various lines of liability: general liability, automobile liability, law enforcement liability, public officials, errors and omissions liability, and cyber liability and data breach. These are the areas that we feel, based on looking at the numbers in terms of the dollars, that at this time is best for us to bind coverage with the pool, because financially it makes sense, and that'll be on the next slide. But the risk pool, they provide claims management. They have specialists who know and understand immunities and tort caps applicable to local governments. As Mr. Trinker mentioned, they have broad coverages designed for the unique needs of local governments. They are local government specific in terms of their coverages. We have errors and omissions coverage, which includes employment-related claims such as discrimination and harassment that would be covered as well. But one of the major ones that we don't currently have is cyber liability and data breach. As Mr. Trinker mentioned, that is a real risk for most cities. It's a critical issue that we all need to take seriously. We hear a lot about data breaches in cities and other organizations and companies. So by binding coverage with the risk pool November 1, we would have cyber liability coverage. So in terms of looking at the cost differential for these lines of liability coverage, general liability, law enforcement, errors and omissions, automobile, and cyber, we looked at the 5-year average for 4 of these, all except cyber liability, because we don't currently have cyber liability. And the cost that we've paid, the annual cost from averaging 5 years worth of payments the city has made being self-insured is $758,172. Whereas if we bound coverage with the risk pool today to begin November 1, that cost would be $758,266. So a difference of $94 to bind coverage with the risk pool. The 5-year average for litigation costs, being self-insured, when the legal department has to litigate certain claims, they have to use outside legal services or outside legal counsel. They spend about $160,000, but by binding coverage with the risk pool, we could save $100,000 of that $160,000 that is currently paid out based on our current coverage of being self-insured. Also, one of the benefits of being part of the risk pool, if we pay all of the annual premium up front, they offer a 2% prepaid discount. That's an additional $15,165. So just at minimum, the city could save $115,000 by binding coverage with the risk pool. Next slide. One of the notable changes from being self-insured to being covered through the risk pool is that City Council will no longer have to approve the general liability and auto liability claims over $10,000 that you currently approve. These will be covered through our premiums that we pay to the risk pool. Our deductible is set at $10,000, so anything over that would be borne by the risk pool and not the city. So those approvals will no longer be needed. There's greater long-term fiscal savings and stability by being in the risk pool. There are additional resources for loss prevention toward reducing claims paid by the city, as well as the training that Mr. Trinker mentioned. They provide safe driving training. We're not proposing today to bind coverage for workers' comp. I looked at those numbers, and for the city, it's more beneficial for us to remain self-insured through workers' comp. But with all of the trainings that's provided by the risk pool, we can offset some of our workers' comp costs. For example, if an employee got into a car accident, I mean, there are possible possibly 3 claims with that. There could be an auto liability claim where we may have to owe due to damage to a third party's vehicle or bodily damage. We would have to pay for the cost of our vehicle, and there could be a workers' comp claim. So by utilizing the training offered by the risk pool, especially safe driving training, we could potentially eliminate three claims by eliminating an accident. It allows the city's legal department and human resources to increase their focus on safety and ensuring a safe and healthy work environment. Next slide, please. So these are some of the non-financial benefits of being a member of the risk pool. One is partnering, the risk pool has been partnering with local governments for 50 years and providing a stable and economic source for risk financing and loss prevention services. I've worked for 5 other Texas cities, and when I was there, they were members of the risk pool, and they're currently members of the risk pool. And as Mr. Trinker mentioned, there's over 1,100 cities that are members of the risk pool. They have claims management specialists who know and understand immunities and tort caps applicable to local government, recovery management and disaster recovery services through Synergy NDS. That's more related to property coverage. We'll be coming back to City Council with a proposal for coverage for property at a later point in time, but there are benefits in the risk pool for those services to expedite our recovery needs during a catastrophic event. And as Mr. Trinker mentioned, they have a dedicated team that's assigned to help members manage risk. So these will be people that are assigned to the city of Beaumont. They won't be someone at the call center that we don't know when we place a call. So the risk management advisor, safety and loss control specialist, an underwriter, a billing specialist will specifically be assigned to the city of Beaumont for us to contact at any time. Next slide. So other non-financial benefits, frequent meetings with these various staff, the risk management advisor, safety and loss control, and any other staff of the risk pool to discuss our annual renewals, loss history, yearly goals, any other city concerns. They meet in person, as Mr. Trinker drove down today to meet with us. Other cities I've worked for, if you need them to come on site and meet, they'll set up a meeting to come and meet with you in person. I've never had an issue with them regarding meeting with any city staff. We have access to the risk pool online training platform. It's called Local GovU, and there are thousands of training courses that are provided. They are free in-person training. Some of the trainings include continuing education credits, and just a few examples of some of the trainings offered include accident investigations, supervisory and safety trainings, back injury prevention, driving training, all again free of charge. Specialized resources on the pool's website. These are related to police and fire best practices, establishing an effective return to work program, call before you fire program, or even call before you discipline program is offered by the risk pool, and as well as hurricane preparedness. They have specialized publications, including aquatics, evacuation documents, fireworks safety, and they have over 600 videos of a wide variety for safety and other liability topics. They provide loss prevention tips, one sheet informational tips that city staff will be able to provide to other departments so that they are aware of how to lower risk within each department. Next slide, please. This is the final page on the non-financial benefits, but the city will have access to their internal legal team for any legal questions, as well as TML and their legislative experts. The risk pool partners with the Texas Police Chiefs Association for law enforcement resources, including their Vincible training program, which is a program designed to reduce the number of police officer deaths. They also partner with the Texas Fire Chiefs Association Best Practices Recognition Program. The pool will provide defense counsel for our covered claims. So each claim that we enter with the risk pool, they will provide those defense coverages through their litigation. And one of the other key items or benefits is access to the online member portal where members can generate loss reports, they can file claims, they can access coverage documents, audit schedules. They can do this 24/7. We'll have access to members of the claims department whenever we need them. And finally, the last bullet, which is really key, subrogation services. This is to help the city recoup funding from damages to our property. So if someone damages our property and a claim is paid by the risk pool, they actually provide those subrogation services, which frees up city staff from having to go after other insurance companies or attorneys in order to recoup our dollars that have been paid. So the next step in this process is what we have in front of you today. This is a request for City Council to grant the city manager the authority to enter into an interlocal with the Texas Municipal League Intergovernmental Risk Pool. Upon receipt of the interlocal agreement, the risk pool will bind coverage with the city to be effective November 1st, expiring or renewing after September 30th, 2024. And also by binding coverage, the risk pool will begin working with us to prepare quotes for property coverage, including flood and windstorm. That expires May 1st. So we'll be working with the risk pool between now and May 1st to get quotes for those coverages to bring back to City Council prior to the May 1st deadline. So that wraps up my presentation. I just want to ask if staff, because I have worked with some staff, if maybe there's something I missed or anything you want to add today?
Good question, Mayor.
We'll get to the
I
questions in a minute.
just kind of wanted to add some of the value for the subrogation services. So at this point in time, we don't have access to a program called Claim Search. It would cost the city about $14,000 a year to have access to that program. Essentially what that program does, it allows us to be able to see if someone who is filing a claim is a person who commonly files claims and it's a fraudulent claim, or if they actually filed a health claim or another injury claim at their job, and then, somehow they get hurt at the city and they file a claim here as well. So we don't have the access to be able to check into that at this time. With going to TML, that would be something that that they use and that they would be able to pull up and see the history that this person has behind their claim filing tendencies. So not only would they help with the subrogation services, but it would also save us from having to pay that $14,000 a year in order to have access to that program.
All right, is there a motion for item one?
We're not there yet.
Oh,
we're still
we
at
do
the-
questions? I thought
Well,
not during
there was a presentation, so the council has an opportunity to ask questions as it relates to the
Why
presentation.
don't we ask questions at this point? Councilman Turner?
3 questions. I just want to make sure I heard it correctly. The term of coverage for 11 months, and if so, why is it only 11 months?
Yeah, well, the reason is that we missed October 1 of this current month. We wanted it to be for 12 months, but again, we've been meeting with the risk pool quite a bit, and I wanted to make sure we had everything in place before coming to council to bind coverage. So after September 30th, then it will be on a fiscal year 12-month basis.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense then. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss that. The second thing is we say expedited. I like expedited, but I'm real big on specifics. Do we have any comparisons of maybe what the risk pool can do in the expedited way compared to what we're currently doing with some of the claims? And, you know, I know you say expedited, just any comparisons, can you kind of explain it a little bit more?
When you file a claim, there's a checkbox to designate it as expedited. Those are typically used when there is a specific deadline for certain types of claims. Usually lawsuits or EEOC claims must be responded to within a certain period of time, and that designating it that way helps us to be able to meet those deadlines. So when a claim is filed, that's really the first thing that's sort of looked at is what are the deadlines here that we're looking at, and do we need to expedite that so that the court gets, or the EOC or whoever is involved gets what they need by the deadline.
Gotcha. Makes sense. And my last question is, will this change affect some of our new recent changes we made financially with our legal department? Is it something that makes sense, because we've done very well with reducing claims in comparison to how we were doing over the past years, and our legal department has done a good job. So will this affect anything, or will this be an asset to what we already created?
So essentially, the only process that this will do is our office will still handle claims that are under $10,000. It would be those claims that are in excess of that would now be essentially processed and litigated outside of my office. We would still focus my office is currently focused heavily on being proactive in our safety program, as well as coming up with additional tools to put in place to audit existing programs for safety. This would not have an impact on that in a negative way. As mentioned in their presentation, they do have tools that our office can use to supplement the programs that we are implementing. But the only major change is that my office will no longer litigate those claims.
All right. Thank you, Matt. That's it.
All right, one thing I wanted clarity on is the annualized premium. Was that at 11 months, or, you know,
That's actually 12 months. So actually, we're going to realize a bigger savings at 12 month savings.
All right, thank you for that. Yes, Councilman Durio?
I know you weren't here, but does anybody know why Beaumont pulled out of this in 2006?
So at the time, it was just forecast that we were basically like any insurance you pay, but you're not necessarily receiving that large coverage. So the coverage was so close that the administration at the time decided that it would be more cost effective to be self-insured than to pay into the risk pool.
Okay, thank you.
That was my question as well, Mayor.
Okay. Fair. Yes, Councilman Felshaw.
Thank you. I had two questions. That was one of them, why we pulled out. The second one is, you've done a great job at telling us the upside. Is there a downside to this? And if so, what would that be?
So there's not, and it really just depends on how council views it. Because my office no longer litigates those claims that are in excess of $10,000, and those claims no longer come to the council. Council no longer has a say or a hand in whether or not those claims get litigated or settled. That now rests with the risk pool. So the process that we would do internally in executive session, they would now do at the risk pool. They would manage that risk in determining whether or not it was more cost effective to settle or cost effective to pursue litigation. So the process that y'all typically do will now be done internally with their board.
But we would monitor that being your office?
No. So it's not the same as if I were to hire outside counsel. So this is not a situation where you're saying we want you to just focus on doing one thing and we want you to hire a firm to litigate. In that case, my office would still manage that outside firm, and they would still need to come to me for approval to get experts and approval to settle and so on and forth. When you go with the risk pool, you essentially allow them to now assume whether or not this is a case to litigate, a case to settle, and they do so with their board.
Would they give us a yearly report on what they did, or?
Yes. So I think and I think that's a better question for him to answer. But yes, we're able to access how our claims are processed and handled, but we're just not actively involved in that process.
it's a very good question. The downside is probably you do lose some control over the claims with us. I will say that we do, Ms. Reed is absolutely correct that part of the interlocal is you are turning the claims over, but that doesn't mean that once you turn a claim in that we don't communicate with you anymore. We will communicate with you about the claim, settlement strategies, things like that. We also do annual reviews with whoever you designate as the fund. I have to say that very carefully because everyone always thinks I'm saying fund contact, and but the fund contact will have an annual review. And so what we'll do is we'll look at the loss trends, the high dollar claims, where it looks like you may be moving in a direction we would prefer you don't go in versus where you're improving. So you'll have access to all that loss information all year long, but you can also request various updates from us and reports. The other thing you would get too is quarterly loss runs with updated loss ratios, as well as the financials related to each claim. So the short answer to your question, sir, is there is some loss of control over claims, but there are conveniences associated with that as well.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Samuel.
Well, since we know, we have an idea of what the trend was prior to 2006 when the city pulled away. And we now have an opportunity to look at the trend as it was from 2006 until now. And did we look at a comparison between the two over a similar time span?
I think our range was 5 years.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was just because records and availability of data that was available, and also just for a more equal comparison prior to, we would have had to look at prior to 2006 to see what the trend was moving backwards before the city reached the decision to withdraw. So we just really focused on where we were now to see if it was more cost effective moving forward as opposed to where we were then.
Absolutely, and we'll continue to do that. As I mentioned, workers' comp, the numbers benefit us on the finance side a little more than going to the risk pool. But next year, the year after, we'll continue to look to see if there is some advantage to us in the future to move the city under the risk pool for workers' compensation. So we'll continue to look at the numbers annually.
Mm-hmm. And we have seen a trend that's starting to trend in the direction we wanted to go. Am I correct?
Yes, sir, but those trends are roller coasters. So yeah, we've done a really good job of implementing safety programs and implementing strategies to assist in reducing our claims. But we have executive session today. And so, obviously we're always excited to report to council that, when we're doing well. And I think that sometimes it's easy to kind of get caught up thinking that you're going to do well. But as Councilman Neal knows, you have a safety record and it quickly goes from, a big number to back down to zero with a minor mistake that can lead to major implications. So right now, yes, we are in a good place, and we've seen a good trend in terms of in claims, but that is sometimes short-lived.
The one thing I could add about that is when you submitted your application to the pool, we generated what's called an experience modifier based on your losses. The baseline is a 1.0. You all are at a 0.95, which is not high, but we could definitely see you a lot lower because you could get down to 0.3.
He's being nice. It's high.
It's a little higher than
it's high. It's high.
It's a little higher than other cities a little bit.
It's high.
You could go from 0.95 to 0.30, and that's a multiplier. So you would be saving almost 70% if you could get your losses down in terms of what you would pay. So there is a big benefit monetarily if you can get those losses down. You could realize a very significant savings.
Okay, so with that, I guess is my last question. If we were to go back to the TML risk pool, would we still be able to do the things that we've done of recent years to lower those liabilities that we've experienced? Or would we lose control of that also?
So what I do internally would not be impacted by the risk pool. The big thing that you're losing in terms of control would be for cases and claims over $10,000. Those now go directly into the risk pool. And we can talk to them about whether or not we want to go, if you want to pay for something that's like, slightly over 10,000, if it's 12,000, it's like, I don't want to want that to file on my insurance. I want to pay that internally. That's something we can discuss with them as well. That's always an option if you want to take on or assume more risk. That's always something that council has the ability to do and to maintain, to keep some kind of control over those claims. But we're talking about some of our major big profile claims.
We still have the same.
We would obviously, bring that to you and to tell you that we're transferring that to the risk pool. That I can tell you that some of the defense attorneys that they use are some of the same ones that we use. So they are working with good lawyers. They do have, exceptional representation. So that's not a concern that I have. But in terms of what we've done in the past and what my office is currently working on to reduce some of our liability in-house would remain the same.
So did you want to say something?
I was just going to add that the tools that they will provide for safety will kind of align with what we're trying to do in the city as far as bringing claims down and training the employees to help reduce the risk that we have of damaging other people's property and injuring people and injuring ourselves. So the tools that they'll be able to provide for us will align with helping us bring those down, which is our goal right now. We're working on different ways to be able to reduce the amount of claims and injuries and all of that. So they'll actually be very helpful in that way.
So this is not unlike most. There's a benefit and a burden. The benefit is we would have to do less. We can reduce the amount of man hours in dealing with claims less than $10,000.
Yes, so basically
lose control.
What this would allow for is a reorganization of my office to focus more on some internal things, both, obviously my office will be split between now safety and the day-to-day operations that the city has. There's some big ambitious goals that council wants to have as it relates to, restructuring downtown. Obviously that comes with more contracts in terms of, some of the downtown impacts the council has expressed that they want to make. So there's going to free up some lawyers in my office to do that as opposed to general litigation. So we would still, like I said, focus on the claims that were lower. It doesn't mean that those claims settle. Some of those claims do go to trial if that's the desire of council. So it'll require a reorganization and a refocusing. And that's the biggest change or impact to my office.
Councilman Turner with one last question.
Based on what I heard, what happens in the instance if we're lose control and we see more cases being settled that we wouldn't like to actually be settled? We'd like to see them actually see if we can actually not settle some of those cases and they go in our favor.
I think that's where the discussions would come in. Ultimately, the pool would still have the ultimate call on that, but we would take your feedback and concerns into consideration.
I was just telling the mayor I had a question about that.
Yeah. So I mean, the settlement strategy ultimately always boils down to: is it going to be cheaper to settle for some very small amount or risk going to trial when the court system is becoming increasingly unpredictable in terms of what things can cost and defense costs and all those things. So it's a kind of a cost-benefit analysis. What I will say, though, sir, is we are very judicious in the use of trying to get things thrown out because of your governmental immunity before they even have a chance to turn into anything. So that's going to be always the first thing we do, is we're going to look and see if your sovereign immunity will be able to have a claim thrown out. And if not, then, you know, outside of law enforcement liability and errors and omissions, there are tort caps in place in the Texas courts that will limit what the damages are.
And Councilman Neal.
Thank you. I was just going to say, Councilman Turner, I think that your concern is actually, I mean, in my opinion, more of a benefit, because it takes the opinions and emotions of council out of the equation and lets the people that deal with this day in and day out for a living make those decisions for us. The other big benefit that I see is that it establishes a cost that the city can use moving forward, versus right now, we don't know, I mean, what it's going to be from year to year. Obviously, the premiums could change, but they should be fairly consistent, especially if we continue on the track of trying to get these wrecks and other things brought down and get that EMR rating lowered.
Yeah, and one other thing I want to add is that this doesn't bind us into a long-term contract. I mean, if we make this payment, it'll be for 1 year. After 3 or 4 years or however long, we can always go back to being self-insured. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
City Manager.
I got a promotion. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I think Councilmember Neal makes a good point in what he just explained to Councilmember Turner about, how this works. I've dealt with them for years, and even when they do settle higher claims, there wasn't a time that they did not come and sit down and consult with us to say, is this okay for you, the council, for us to settle this case? No matter what, it was their authority, but they still had those conversations, and we were able to provide the feedback that we wanted to provide with them. Sheree and I talked a bit about this, about the operations of the office before this. So we wanted to be on the same page. We didn't want to do anything that would negatively impact our office. So what we're talking about today, it works well with her office and her existing services, based upon us looking at a new service. Also, simply put, this puts you on the next level of service. This is taking you to a higher level of service, much higher than we have right now. What we have now, and I don't mean to be negative, it's cumbersome, it's difficult. You spend a lot of time on cases, staff spend a lot of time on cases, and they will have professional people doing this. And they don't take their responsibilities lightly. They're not just going to sit there, like he said, they're going to look at immunity, sovereign immunity, and they're going to disallow a lot of things. And you don't have to deal with that personally. You don't have to deal with the personalities of people and things like that. You've got professional people dealing with that. But I think it really puts what the city's offering in this type of coverages in a much higher level service than we're delivering right now.
Thank you. Any other discussion before we? So I believe now's the appropriate time to ask for a motion.
Move to approve.
There's been a motion and a second. Now, is there any additional discussion? All in favor of approving item number 1, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. At the close of the City Council meeting, the council will hold executive session to consider matters related to contemplated or pending litigation in accordance with Section 551.071 of the Government Code, the claim of Stella DeBlaw, the claim of Tiffany Simpson. We are now done with our regular agenda items, and at this time, we will go into our discussion item, discussion of the Naming Policy Ordinance, and I believe City Attorney Sheree Reed will lead this discussion item.
So on your dais, you had a copy of the ordinance or proposed ordinance in its final form. I'm circulating a copy of that same exact ordinance, but with the red line changes so you can see exactly what was changed. The biggest change to the ordinance is that we removed the streets as a covered property under this process. The renaming of streets presents a unique set of challenges and considerations that are already effectively addressed with the existing street naming policy. When we consulted with staff, it was determined that to change that process would provide a hardship to citizens, and so we removed that one. So that's a big change. There were also some slight drafting changes to improve clarity and understanding for the proposed review process and procedures. We also included a provision that would require the donor to be responsible for the cost of replacement if the feature, the naming, was damaged. And so we'll just kind of jump right into it. The renaming process for a new property, the city would put out a request for proposal for naming rights. The requester would obviously submit a bid that's no different from what we have now. As a part of the requirement, we would obviously bring that to council to accept that proposal if we bring some, and then the procedure would start. So you guys would still have the ability to reject or accept bids, same as the process that we have now. The process for an existing property would be a little bit different. The requester would send a letter to the clerk's office, and that would be forwarded to the city manager and council. It'd be set on the next available council meeting for consideration of either forwarding that to an existing committee or creating an ad hoc committee. So the criteria for whether or not you would create an ad hoc committee versus sending that to an existing board or committee. Right now, we already have a Parks and Recreation Board. So if the request was to rename a park, it would be fitting to just send it to the Parks Board as opposed to creating an ad hoc committee. If the council, if it was something new, a new facility, for example, and that went through the process and we created an ad hoc committee for that, council would obviously allow for that committee to meet, create that committee, allow that committee to meet. They would bring their recommendations back to council. Council also has the ability to just send it to a department or staff if that was something that you wanted to do. For example, if someone wanted to rename the Lakeside Center, we have, staff that manages that building that might want to have some input, so that would also be an option. But after recommendations for staff, after that meeting concluded, that would be put on the next available agenda for council to review. Obviously, the committee or staff, whatever individuals receive that request, would have to follow the criteria that's established in the ordinance for whether or not that name request meets that criteria. Then it would go to council on the next available council meeting. Council have the ability to accept or reject the name request for any reason, despite whether or not it met the approval. So council still has a final say so on the naming of property. And those are the major changes in the process. Like I said, it has been filtered through the department's budget effects, and I don't think we had any additional feedback from those gentlemen. They had a chance to review it prior to submitting it to you. So that is the final, like I said, the clean copy that you have is the final proposed process. And I will happy to answer any questions that the council has.
Mayor? Councilman Getz, I'm sorry.
So this will be brought back to us for a vote at some point?
If that's the desire of council. Yes, sir.
Councilman Felshaw. I'm looking around to see if anybody else has got their hand up.
I tried to go through this as quickly as I could to try to answer my questions so I don't have to ask them, but
Yes, sir.
and it may be in here. Let's say we're going to name a park after someone. Would the would there be public input within that neighborhood in regards to that naming?
Is this a new park or an existing park?
It's never easy with your legal department.
I want to answer the question thoroughly.
Okay.
So if it was a new if it was something new that we were establishing and council wanted to put it out for a request for proposal, then obviously it would be from bidders. If it's an existing park, council could do it one or two ways. They could send that that name request to the Parks and Recreation Committee Board for them to make a recommendation. Those individuals are made up of individuals who live there, or council could create an ad hoc committee of just individuals from that singular neighborhood, if that's something that they chose to do.
Okay. Can a name be used of a living individual, or is it only after they've passed?
So we didn't change that. So the criteria that we have in place is still the same. That wasn't changed unless it's a desire of council as well. The proposed that we put together is in its final form. So obviously I'm not expecting council there's no action required today. So council is encouraged to review it in its entirety. And if there's suggestions that you want to bring forth or make changes to it, obviously you can send those to my office. And when it's put back on council for approval, we can go over those changes for the body if that's.
Okay. Is there something in here that talks about if a name is going to be chosen, we seek a recommendation of that family?
So
and vetting out that name, because sometimes family have information that we don't have.
Yeah, so obviously you can't put someone's name on the building, if it's someone, living or dead, that you can't put it on without their permissions or name.
Right.
So there's some, obviously there's just some legal criteria for that, but that's not specifically spent on our ordinance because that's something that's legal. But I just pick on Councilman Neal because he sits closer to me. If he wanted to, someone wanted to propose in his family that a building be named after his family, obviously he would have to recuse himself from that process. But there would be nothing that prevented him from saying my family is in support of that, right? If someone from the public wanted to do that, be nothing as him being a spokesperson on behalf of his family saying, yeah, we approve that. But he obviously, couldn't vote on that, right? So the other big thing for you to consider, for council to consider, is that the criteria that it be, something that's, good, moral turpitude. We might not want to put, the name of a tobacco product on a playground.
I know there's something in there that addresses the cost and endowment to maintain.
Yes.
If somebody does that, is there a limit on the amount of time? Like they have to maintain it for the next 20 years, 30 years, or is it unended?
So that would go towards how long you were going to allow the naming rights for. So if you did a request for proposal and the request for proposal was to have the name of the Civic Center be, put up, you could say you wanted to do it for 10 years or you wanted to do it for 20 years. And so that would be how long the maintenance would require. If someone wanted to, obviously we're not going to allow for naming rights for less than 10 years to have to change the name so often would be cost prohibitive. So that would be kind of the understanding in the process that they would be responsible for providing some type of endowment for that period.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Neal?
Thank you. On the second page, there's one item on there that says request to name individual features with a value of less than $5,000 shall be referred to appropriate city staff and shall not require the approval of city council. I don't know if I like that.
It's open to change.
What's that?
I said it's available to be changed. This particular ordinance, again, especially when we draft new ordinance, we just kind of look to see what has worked or what is working in other cities, but you're not bound by that.
Second page.
I circled that. I don't mean to take your time, Councilman, but can you clarify his question too? It says request to name individual features with a value of less than 5,000. So it's anything, the feature itself that you're naming is less than 5,000, correct?
Correct.
So it's not addressing the signage itself, like you're going to put a plaque on something. You don't bring that before council for us to approve a plaque.
We wouldn't, but if you would prefer that, we could.
No, please don't.
Okay.
I'm next to last page, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's.
It would say it says council adoption, and then it goes down to E, request to name individual features with a value of less than 5,000 shall be referred to appropriate city staff and shall not require the approval of city of council. But again, we can change that.
So right now, we're not doing plaques, correct?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Mayor, I just want to add to that. In the past, we've done things like park benches and trees and things like that. I think that's where that threshold comes in at. And then I will comment on Councilman Neal's question, or the question earlier about maybe notifying members. You know, this is not common, but the street renaming process is similar to this. And so whenever we have an application for a street renaming, of course, we ask that the applicant provide justification for the purpose of the renaming. And then part of staff's responsibility is to, you know, try to research the history of why that street was named that way. And again, notification. And so again, as you go through the review process for whatever the issue, whether it's a park or a structure or what have you, as you go through that process, you know, you can expand that to the extent that we would want to, in terms of research or notification.
So to Mr. ATM Boone's point, what we tried to do is memorialize what we were already doing and put it into a policy. We decided to pull streets out because there were already, as mentioned last week, already a process in place that works well, and we didn't want to muddle it with this process. But a lot of the things that we already do are kind of memorialized now in this policy. But to Councilman Felshaw's point, if you want to name the trees and the benches, we're happy to allow you to do that.
I vote no.
If there are no additional questions, like I said, I would encourage members of council to just kind of review it at your leisure. I know that most of the changes, the red lines or the strikeouts are in red. That's what we took out. The additions are in blue. That's what we included in just for clarification and purposes, but would encourage council to review it and just follow the normal procedure for adding it back to the agenda as a discussion, or either a action item or discussion item, whatever the pleasure.
thank you. Okay, at this point, allow council member comments, and I will start with Councilman Durio.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. One, I hope we have someone looking into these water bills. I mean, a $1,700 water bill for a house that's not occupied and it's been checked and has no leak. There's definitely a problem somewhere. And we're telling folks, make sure you don't have no leak and check. But I hope we're doing everything we can to have that addressed. And other than that, yesterday we went to a BISD Stadium Memorial dedication. They have a memorial up there with all the high schools that had ever been a part of BISD or South Park ISD. It was pretty nice. It was a pretty nice presentation. The mayor and I we had representative for just about every high school except for Beaumont High. We didn't have anybody there from Beaumont High, but it was a nice ceremony. That's all I have, Mayor.
Councilman Getz?
I echo your comments about checking into some of these water bills. I've had a lot of citizens contact me with extremely high water bills. So, I'm told that the water department goes out, checks the meters, and that they feel pretty confident that the meters are reading the correct usage. Still, there's a lot of bills that are extraordinarily high based on what historically they have read. So I'm just wanting to make sure that there's not something strange going on there. Lamar has a big football game this weekend. Lamar is sitting on top of the Southland Conference race right now, and I just want to encourage everybody to go out and support your hometown university, Lamar, this Saturday. And we want the good Cardinals to win, not the bad Cardinals to win. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Getz. Councilman Turner?
Just along the lines of the water customer service, that was a concern of mine as well. You know, often there's always two sides to the story, but you know, when you have multiple citizens come up and say they've been hung up on and they were being rude to, that's not a good combination on top of a already high bill that they had a concern about. So I know we say we confident, but I want to make sure. The next thing is I wanted to see if the council can get an update on where we are with BNSF or the railroad with our riverfront project. I know we ran into some obstacles with that railroad crossing in the front, but I think it's appropriate that we probably see where we are at with that at this time. I know we were working on the crossing, but some things took place and we just need to get an update on where we're at with that.
Riverfront?
With the riverfront part, the railroad crossing in the front. The second thing was North End Neighborhood Association meeting on last night. One of the main things they were discussing was they have a huge concern with the sidewalks at Jones Clark and Martin Elementary. Both of those schools are on the North End, and they know we allocated funding for sidewalks, so they wanted to see if that could be a first top priority. The elementary schools in the North End with that funding will be dedicated to the North End. The second thing they asked about was Magnolia Park. They said we have benches throughout the park, but there's no cement leading to the benches in the pavilion. So, you know, basically citizens have to walk through the grass, and if it's raining, you have to literally walk through the grass. And the following day, to just sit and have a nice day at the park. So they want to look into that. The next thing I want to ask about is we had a workshop with Corona, where Corona gave the city of Beaumont several things that they thought we needed to do in order to make sure our water infrastructure was flowing properly. I would also like to see if we can get an update to the council as a whole on where staff is and as far as making progress on that Corona update. And the last thing is we requested that the Parks and Rec Committee be separated because there are two separate operating departments with the new structure of the city. We still have them combined as Parks and Recs. I think it causes conflict when we kind of sit in those meetings and we try to mix the both when they're two separating departments. A lot of council members have already voiced their concern about separating those two with the appointments, so I just like to see it happen. That's it.
Thank you, Councilman Turner. Councilman Felshaw.
Thank you, Mayor. No comment.
Councilman Samuel.
I'm good. I'm okay. No comment.
Councilman Neal.
The only thing I'd like to add, kind of piggybacking off of Councilman Durio on the water, if we could take a deeper dive into that, because it seems like all day, every day, that's the phone calls we get is from citizens with the water bills on concerns. I have no doubt that the city's trying to work through this, but if we could just get some answers from council on this, on what's really happening and how do we get out of this. What's scary about that is the big bill is the one that's coming. It's not even here yet. So just something for us to keep digging into.
For clarity, Councilman Neild is the one that said that, if you need to follow up with anybody on that. Yes, Councilman Samuel.
Yeah, well, I too agree that we have to get on top of the issue with water because that's where we get in most of the concerns. But the most disturbing thing to me is I know we've always taken pride in good customer service, but, you know, I've gotten more complaints about the water department in recent months. I know I've had at least 3 or 4 in the last 2 weeks. I know many times when you're dealing with water, that issue, the customers can be somewhat assertive, but we don't know what's going on in their lives. We don't know how it's impacted them. And we just have to make sure we remain customer friendly. We've always had that concern, but I think right now, in the times that we're in, and I'm saying that, and it's not as a complaint about the departments, but from what I've seen in my practice, as well as what I'm seeing every day, we're seeing an increased number of people that are having mental or emotional issues, and we can either calm that down or we can escalate it. And many times we are not aware of who's at that edge. So these are special times that we have to be especially careful about how we respond to citizens. And so that's the only thing. That's one of my biggest concerns of what we're doing to help or what we're doing to increase the possibility that there will be episodes. In the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've had 3 encounters that could have been real bad, and it was by public entities. And I believe, from my assessment, the entities in which were supposed to be serving that category of people, they're the ones that escalated it. So I can't always say it's the person. We have to be more sensitive toward the times that we're in. That's all I'm.
Thank you, Councilman.
If I could add one more thing, kind of echoing on the customer service aspect of the water department, I'm being told that frequently people will call in and be told that their wait time before they can talk to a customer service representative is in excess of 1 hour. Now, I don't know if our system has the ability, like some other utilities, so that when you're in a queue that is going to be long, you have the option of saying your phone number and getting a call back, as opposed to waiting on hold for an exorbitant amount of time. Do we have that ability where you can just get a call back and you won't lose your place in line, but you don't have to just sit there on the phone? Don't have that? Maybe that's something we ought to look at, because I know that other utility companies have that capability.
Thank you. Councilman Durio.
I just asked manager, do we have any type of customer service training in place? Because I'm getting a lot of complaints on specific people, and not the whole water department, but the water billing department. Well, some of the folks, I mean, they're just not friendly. You know, and if you call up there with a $1,700 water bill, man, well, I'm not going to be friendly either. But I got a reason. The person that's in there, though, they have to be prepared to be very helpful, and they can't give them. I don't care. That's your job. I don't care if you're having a bad day or not. The customer shouldn't know that you're having a bad day. They should feel that they're there to help them and to get that problem solved.
Yeah, customer service is nothing more important in what we do than providing excellent customer service. You know, when I got here, one of the things I identified, one of our biggest issues I thought was we could improve on customer service. And we did. We had every employee of the city of Beaumont go through a customer service training. Now, we've had a lot of people change and positions change over the years, and it's just time for more comprehensive customer service training. But there's no excuse for poor customer service. You know, there's a lot of things you can do. You might not can get to a water line at a certain time or whatever, but there's no excuse to be rude to people. So that's something we'll work on, and definitely we'll work on. If we have any issues with that, we will certainly correct poor customer service issues.
And Mayor, if I may, Councilman Durio, a week and a half ago, I did ask about customer service training downstairs here, and they did identify some funding a couple of weeks ago, and they will be implementing some training to staff for customer service.
And I think that's going to be outside training, correct? Yeah, because we did do internally. I think that's what the manager, we did it internally, so maybe time to do it outside.
All right, Ms. City Attorney.
I have nothing, Mayor.
Bart.
The BNSF crossing, I'm assuming you're referring to the pedestrian crossing we were looking for. The city did try to tie that to a spur that BNSF was putting in. They came back to council and asked to be let out of that requirement, and council agreed to that. So we don't have a approved pedestrian crossing at this time. It'll be something we have to work on and get BNSF to agree to, wherever we decide to put it and however we decide to put it in, whether it's elevated or at grade. So that'll be something we'll have to work on in the future.
And I know also they said they would be willing to possibly assist with funding because of that. I just want to make sure we stay on top
They
of that.
did, but none of the things that they brought up that day, quite honestly, were, directly pertaining to an elevated crossing. They kept mentioning an elevated crossing. An elevated crossing has to be ADA compliant, has to have an elevator on both sides of it. You're talking
Expensive.
a great deal of money for that. So if that's something we want to do, we'll have to try to find funding and pursue that. But we don't have anything locked in at this time on
I
that.
just want to stay on top of it because I know we moving, so I just want to stay on top of it in advance.
Nothing, Mayor. Thanks.
Just follow up on some things, but too, let me say customer, water utilities is difficult. It's probably one of your more difficult departments to work in and dealing with citizens because they are, people are upset. So I do want to give staff a benefit of the doubt in some situations. There are situations where people really come in and treat them badly, but we even need to teach our people how to handle those situations. So I just want to add that for clarity. We'll research this water issue, water billing issue. We'll come back to council with a report of our findings, see what we find out, if it's, I don't know, billing or just the fact that we went through a drought and people were using water, they have leaks, or our software's not working right. We'll research it and come back with the report to city council on that. And the Parks and Work Committee, I have a draft memo on my desk for that agenda item for next time already. It was given to me by Assistant City Manager Chris Boone last time, and I'll be reviewing that. And so that's prepared to come to council. I think it's next meeting. Is it next meeting, Chris? So we are working on that issue. And that's all I have. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say that it was a pleasure to have St. Anthony's Basilica School here today, and that made the meeting started on the best possible step. And Councilman Durio and I both being at the BISD unveiling of the monument was very nice. And this Friday night is the Beaumont Bowl. So Westbrook or Beaumont United will get a win. And we support that. I don't mean anything by that. I like to remind people on the public comments that we are not allowed to respond to the public comments when they're made. So it's not that we're not ignoring you. It's just that we aren't able to respond at that time. And certainly on the water bills, much has been said about it. One thing I wanted to throw, my understanding was people could leave a message, but I hadn't personally experienced that. And I trust that we can't. But, oftentimes when you call in, sometimes they tell you that your call is going to be recorded for training purposes, and perhaps that is something that we can add. I don't know what the cost is, and obviously, but that would be a way, because certainly we've all experienced calls where people feel like they're being very reasonable in their request, and others may not feel the same. And clearly, if somebody needs additional training, we want to make sure they provide it. Neighborhood association meetings, it is so important to attend if you're able to. I just want to mention that, and we do have them across the city. You get a lot of good information there, as then the police department shows up at all of them, given the local stats, and those are posted on our website and also on our social media page to get that information out. And this Sunday, Superintendent Shannon Allen and myself will be at Mother of Mercy talking about volunteering in public schools. And at this point, we will now recess into executive session.